All right, y'all. So look, man, we had a great Rugby World Cup weekend going into this one. I think that we could say that this might be one of the most exciting Rugby World Cup semifinals that we've had in a long time. But the results definitely were something to be made. Let's start off first off with Argentina versus New Zealand. Now, that was a game that we had a lot of hope, but not necessarily a whole lot of expectations. Argentina would fall to New Zealand 44-6. All Blacks scored 7 tries in this, led by Will Jordan, the winger. All Blacks led in every major statistical category. One person that you got to absolutely say was a beast in that one was center Jordy Barrett. He led in carries, in meters carried, tackles, and also scored. Like, talk about a perfect game. The All Blacks just looked like the legitimate All Blacks that you know from the past. Not like what we saw over the course of the last year. They looked like an actual All Blacks team. Argentina did try to put up 2 penalty kicks led by Emilio Boffenci. And, of course, flanker Marcos Kramer led in tackles and carries. Speaks volumes to what that Argentina side, the way it's coached, man. It's a forward-heavy side. Michael Shika definitely speaks to try and make sure they can open up the middle, and then let's spread it out to more and more going out from there. Next game, we had England taking on South Africa. Now, this was probably the most key game of it all. We really were not sure where it was going to go. Everybody really thought South Africa, honestly, even myself, thought South Africa was absolutely going to dominate in this game. Needless to say, to be able to see what the final score was a little bit heavy. Final score, South Africa winning 16-15 over England. This one was about as evenly set as possible. I know a lot of people talk about the scrums, and we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later on. But man, this one, England just didn't have that little bit. But I have to say, we have to stop underestimating England. Owen Farrell led in this with score of 15, 5 penalty kicks. All scores for England were led by him. England led the majority of this game. South Africa kicking has been the name of the game for this Rugby World Cup, and kicking continued to be the name of the game in it. Pollard definitely led with 2 penalty kicks and a conversion to keep South Africa over the top. Of course, the try by R.G. Shaman really is what I think sent this spark up for South Africa and gave them the chance to just be able to take it over. Again, a lot can be said. Maybe you can talk about the penalties. You can talk about, whatever. Talk about the penalties. Talk about the ref play. Honestly, you play the game the way that you play the game. People might say Owen Farrell talked a lot to the refs and didn't give them, the refs didn't give favorable play towards England, especially when you talk about the scrum penalties and the way South Africa was able to maneuver them. But once again, you play the game that's in front of you. You don't play the game that you want to have. And it's not about a perfect game. It's about the game you complete. So shout out, big ups to South Africa and New Zealand making it into the finals. Man, we have the match. Like, I think this is easily the match that we wanted to have. But I think this might be the match that doesn't grow rugby, but this is the best entertainment match that we could have. Kind of looking forward to it. I mean, think about the storyline on this. You have a 28-year return to both South Africa and New Zealand playing each other in the Rugby World Cup. The last time they did it was whenever the movie Invictus was based off of what the movie Invictus was. I always love to say, man, like, the routes that they got to it were almost similar. New Zealand in 2000, New Zealand in 1995 was running through it. Wait, before I get started, big shout out to Brandon. Thank you so much, Brandon Davis, for taking the time to watch. If you guys want to be able to comment, absolutely send a comment. I definitely love it. Absolutely, Wayne Barnes coming up to be able to be the main rep for this finals game. So definitely big shout out on that one. But the parallels between 95 and 2023, 28 years later, are odd. New Zealand had what one would say is an easy quarterfinals going into the semifinals, going to the finals as the absolute dominant team on their pathway. Obviously, they had Jonah Lomo, who was arguably the best rugby player ever, definitely the best rugby player at that time, and was an absolute beast. For South Africa, a little bit more of a struggle. They had an easy game against Western Samoa, but the rest was just a grind going up against France and to try and get into the finals play. And you also had that same one. South Africa grind against France, grind against England, trying to get into the semifinals. The difference is, we actually have a championship contender, a championship protector in this one for South Africa. New Zealand, obviously has the history of being a dominant team overall. Obviously, these teams have won 3 and 3 Rugby World Cups, respectively. For New Zealand, 1987, 2011, and of course 2015. And for South Africa, it has been 1995, 2019, and I forgot the last one. 1999. I can't even remember. My goodness, this is bad on my part. But they are looking at for 3 and 3. Now, here's the interesting thing that goes with this, and when it comes to the predictions that I have for this game. All right, New Zealand and South Africa, since the Rugby World Cup in 2019, have gone 3 and 2. Now, one could say 3 and 3 for South Africa, but the last match they played was a warm-up match for the Rugby World Cup, so that doesn't actually count for anything. That doesn't count for ish. Like, it's just, we're gonna throw our backup players and half-ass it because there ain't nobody trying to get injured. But New Zealand has won the last one, 2023, won that one 35-20, and then the last 2 Rugby World Championships, New Zealand and South Africa have split this. So, hey, my guy Marcus, the great ref, puts his predictions in. You guys can check it out, Instagram Live. For South Africa by 3. I think that's a really, really, look, this is a toss-up win, and there's no doubt that this is going to be a close game. For me, though, I think the history with New Zealand, and especially the heat that New Zealand has been bringing up, is going to be a difference maker. Like I said, South Africa lost this last rugby championships. The average score between these games for South Africa and New Zealand have been 9.4 points. Basically, it was 2021. You had 2 points, 3 points, and then it started just increasing 12, 4, and then became 15 this last one. And so I don't know if the mentality is going to be strong there. New Zealand is heating up. South Africa's been they've been fighting. And I believe that South Africa's a bully team, and New Zealand has just been coasting, being able to coast, but that's because they get their juice. My predictions for this one, I think New Zealand actually wins this one. The score line for this one is at 1.5 points in South Africa, in New Zealand's favor. I actually think New Zealand will actually take this one just because I think their confidence has gone up. I'm not going to give any props to Ian Foster. I am going to give props to this New Zealand team because I think they found their legs. I think the South African team is going to punch them in the mouth. But, man, there's something about South Africa and the fear of kicking that makes me go, I don't know what we're going to expect from them. But I'm going to give this New Zealand. I think this is going to be literally a 2-point game. Probably something the guys of 17-15 or 21-19. No repeat winner for South Africa, even though personally I want them to win because I'd love to see the back-to-back. But, my guy Brandon Davis talking about, I was hoping Northern Hemisphere to take it, but let's be honest, it's the matchup that everyone wants. I agree. I thought the way for Northern Hemisphere was a little bit wild, but it's why I enjoy playing the way that we're playing this game. A lot of talk about the Rugby World Cup has been that this has been a fairly disappointing Rugby World Cup, and a lot of that is based off of pool play. But ultimately, I think when it comes down to it, we always want to see to make sure that we're getting the best teams into the quarterfinal. After that, I am all for what's going to happen. And it makes it so much better that it doesn't necessarily discredit the world rankings leading in, but I think they take out the importance. A lot of people say, oh man, the South Africa versus France game should have been a championship game, or New Zealand, Ireland should have been a championship game. No, I want to see the best play whenever they're at the beginning. And I want to see how you go through the hardest competition. All right, go through the gauntlet. And and that's what you got. Like, out of this quarterfinals, what did you want? You want one person to at least be some level of a dark horse and a spoiler. You want to see the best teams compete against each other. But ultimately, in the end, you want to know that you got the best of the best going in against each other. And I think when it came down to this, we got the best of the best. South Africa, France, perfect. Took out the number 2 team, though. Who's up? South versus North. We got Ireland versus New Zealand. Ireland had been clouding number 1 all season, beating teams all year round. But it's a team that had never won a quarterfinals leading into it. Losing to New Zealand in that fashion, what do you get exactly what you want. It's not about where the rankings are. It's about who you play and can you smack them in the mouth. And on the flip side, obviously, you had Fiji entering in against England, which we all doubted England on that one. I can't say enough about that. We all doubted England so hard, but they made it through. And best of all, the spoiler, Wales versus Argentina, an Argentina team that I don't think we thought was going to be more of a dark horse, and then we kind of pulled it back. But to take out a Welsh offense like that, you can't ask for more from a quarterfinal. That's what you want. Then ultimately, it wasn't an easy walk going into the semifinals, but it is what it is. And New Zealand, South Africa. So that's me, New Zealand by 2 to take this one for the finals, even though I really want South Africa to repeat. Of course, we got the third place game, England versus Argentina. For that one, dude, I'm really hoping both teams actually try and make their best out of it. I actually think England's going to end up winning this one, even though I think Argentina is going to play with far more force, especially after what's been happening with the Nations Cup, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think that one's going to end up being more of a 15-point game. I think England's going to take this one 35-20. Their guys are ready to get back home, but I think they have such a heavy pride, and losing in that fashion against South Africa is going to be one of those things that just stick in their minds for the rest of the tournament and moving on for the next 4 years or so. So I think this is going to be a really good one to be able to check out. All right, y'all. Let me move on to the next, because, it wasn't just about the Rugby World Cup this year.
I ain't convinced.